Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of MMA from London to LA. We also, I think, maybe one day we could be called the Lords of MMA because I'm your host, Lord Colin Crandall. With me is Lord Callum Samuelson. Together, we form the team most viewed and enjoyed by the royal family and the king himself, King Charles. MMA from London to LA, mate. I'm so glad to be here, and I also continue my Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour. I play the bloody American Mad Dog. My mate here is the bloody Englishman, Callum Samuelson. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm really good, really good. Another great card, another great
Yes,
UFC event.
indeed.
Can't complain at all.
Nope, indeed. And why don't we get ready to jump into this? I've heard the King Charles doesn't like to have too much banter and messing about before he hears the recap of last Saturday's fight.
Yeah.
So, King Charles, we'll get right to that for you. Wouldn't want to hold you up. We know your time is valuable. So let me see over here what we have. We have it, of course, right when I wanted it. We didn't have it, but I'm going to find it right here. We all know that it was UFC 292, headlined by two title fights. First was the co-main event. Weili Zhang, or Zhang Weili, out of China, was defending her UFC women's strawweight title against Amanda Lemos. And then we had for the main event the UFC men's bantamweight title, the champion Aljamain Sterling defending against Sugar Sean O'Malley. And we can blaze through some of the lower ones. So first of all, the first fight of the night was a rematch from Marina Moroz and Karine Silva. I called that, and I called that everywhere. I put it everywhere, posted it. My girl Karine Silva not only got revenge after 9 years ago losing to Marina Moroz when Karine Silva was only a 20-year-old fighter with a couple of fights on her belt, but she came back and became the first fighter to submit Marina Moroz in like 20-some fights. I'm not looking at the record now.
1 second left. 1 second left on the clock as well.
Wow, yeah. This is a bad girl, man. Karine Silva is not messing around. She is very serious. Every girl that she's fought in the UFC, she finishes. She is. I'm very impressed with her. I got a feeling that just she has this mindset, and she's a very strong woman and a very good grappler, also a pretty good striker, and just intense. I mean, she's just, you can just feel the intensity from her. I like her. Karine Silva is going to be a force, and I think women's flyweights better watch out. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, definitely. The submission was excellent for her to get it just before the end of the round as well. Shows how good the technique is as well, because most people try and ride out a submission until the end of the round and then it gets broken up, but flawless. Looked really, really good.
Without a doubt. The other Silva, Natalia Silva, who has nearly as good a record and nearly close to as good a finisher, I wasn't as confident in her. In fact, I thought Andrea Lee would give her some trouble, and she didn't really. I was a bit surprised. I know Andrea Lee's getting a bit older, and I know this younger generation is a bit better all around than the older girls. And but Andrea Lee, for quite a while, gave a lot of women a tough time. In fact, several fights that she lost, many people felt she won, but not the case in this one.
Yeah, agreed. Andrea Lee is really tough, and it's very, very rare that you're going to finish someone like Andrea Lee, but I think Silva still did a really good job. Obviously, he didn't get the finish, got a decision win, but Andrea Lee, I mean, we saw her recently lose a close decision, was it to Macy Barber, a fight I thought she actually won, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show the level Andrea Lee still is at, but Silva was excellent, so and deserved a win, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. I've noticed we both worn red here. I guess with women.
We're matching when we weren't even meant to.
I was going to say, with women, it would be a bloody disaster, as they don't like it to have the same outfit on. But I will say you look better in the red than I do. So,
no, you pull it off fantastic as well, Colin.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. All right, Callum, continuing on, we have Andre Petrovsky, Gerald Meerschaert. I picked the winner here. I think most of us did, but I don't think most of us felt it would be this much of a struggle. I think Mearshart knew that this was an important fight for him as the older fighter,
Mm.
getting into his late 30s, and I think he did fight accordingly. And he really wanted this one, but Andre Petrowski is just too young and too good for him. Interesting matchup though, with two very adept grapplers and one extreme veteran in Mearshart and a man who is becoming a veteran to an extent, but still is ascending his way to the top in Andre Petrowski.
Yeah, good fight. Petrowski is he's almost got, if you're looking at having a physique where you want to be a model or something, he's almost got the perfect physique. But for MMA, he's got a very, it's going to be a difficult task for him because there's so many people in his division, especially 85, that's so rangy and tall and good takedown defense. But he's not a person that looks bloated at the weight. So I can't imagine him being able to slim down to 70 because he's got a big frame naturally. I think he'll become a contender. I don't know if he can break that top 5, maybe not even a top 10 potentially. But again, Mearshart is a very crafty veteran at this point. And I think I was watching the weigh-in show, and I think Bilal Muhammad, if I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not misquoting here, was saying he's arguably one of the smartest minds in MMA. And people will probably hear that and laugh and be like, well, why isn't he winning more fights? Sometimes it's just one of those things, and sometimes physically you're better than you are like intellectually.
Yeah.
Mearshart might be that guy where he starts coaching after he stops fighting, and you're like, oh my goodness, his mind for fighting is just on another level, and end up coaching people. I think that might be the route for him. I'm not saying
Yeah.
he has to retire yet, but I think we're not going to appreciate the brilliance of Gerard Mearshart until he stops fighting and starts coaching.
And I agree. And all respect to him, people were nearly paid on the underdog bet, but once again, unfortunately, the judge decided in this case to have sharked on the winning ticket for those betting for Gerald. Can't blame Gerald for sharking this time because he did quite a good job, but nevertheless, you bet on him with the underdog. You ended up, unfortunately, with sharked, as you guys would say over there in the United States. Continuing on, sorry, apologize to King Charles on that. You don't love that sort of talk, but what the heck, once in a while, right? Plug your ears. Continuing on, the winners of the Ultimate Fighter, Cody Gibson and Brad Katona. The Canadian winning that one as expected. I don't want to spend too much time on that because not too many people know or care that much about these guys, but Gibson gave it a tough shot. Interesting fight. Katona's a tough guy, though. Looks fairly promising, I suppose. What do you think?
Yeah, top fight. Really good fight.
Absolutely. Next one, Kurt Hollabaugh, the older fighter, winning as a no, he was a favorite as well. He became only the second underdog to pay out tonight out of 12 fights, a total of 2. Like peace, 2.
Yeah.
For one.
It's the first fight in history, right?
The first one?
First fight in history to win back-to-back, not back-to-back, sorry, 2 tough.
That I think is possibly true. Yes, not back to back, but I believe that. I was thinking that over the night of UFC 292, only 2 underdogs paid off. Was Kurt Hollabaugh and Sean O'Malley.
Wow.
And yeah, that's right. 2 tough winners for the great Kurt Hollabaugh. So hopefully he'll be back. He looked in great shape for 36 years old. Unfortunately, at 36 years old, at lightweight, you don't have too much more time. It's all about speed and reflexes for the most part, but tough guy. I like him. RoboCop came in there and did his RoboCop thing. He's just a tough guy. He came back from that loss. And Dennis Teoleolin looked like he had about as much a chance as you and I would have had against RoboCop. All respect to Teoleolin.
Yeah.
But Colin Leolin and Callum Leolin would have not done probably better.
Yeah. He is just that guy. RoboCop's rarely in a boring fight and rarely goes to decision. The guy is excellent TV, excellent fighter.
Indeed. You know what's interesting? They're one weight division apart now, but I always thought he and Poatan, Alex Pereira, would be an interesting matchup, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
and those guys would beat the brakes off each other. The only
Yeah.
thing is that if it stayed on the feet, Alex a bit better and a bit longer than Gregory. But if it goes to the ground, Alex is in huge trouble.
Yeah.
Especially if he's on the bottom. So perhaps one day. Moving on, Brad Tavares and Chris Weidman. Chris gave it a hell of a shot. 39 years old, taking 2 years off, coming off a terrible leg injury. Back in the old days, because both men are veterans, but Chris and Brad Tavares. Back in the old days, I guess maybe old days, maybe in the 100 years ago, in combat sports, I think in England and the United States, the opponent would have deliberately not attacked the legs to be a gentleman, right? He would have said, I'm not going to take that easy way out. My opponent had just an ugly leg injury and had other knee injuries, so I'm going to do the sporting thing and not attack his legs. But nowadays, I don't know whether it's mean spirited. I don't think so. I think it's nowadays you can't, as you guys say, mess about when you're trying to compete in the UFC. If you can win by finding whichever advantage, then do it, because the UFC wouldn't reward anyone, I think, for being a gentleman and not trying to attack the legs and therefore losing. I think if he hadn't attacked the legs, he very well could have lost. I think Chris Weidman was looking sharp, but that leg attack was exactly the recipe, and too much for Chris. I will say this, for Chris hanging in there, he's a warrior. His legs were getting smashed, and gave it a hell of a shot. Sad to see him lose, but for a 2-1 underdog, he looked decent, not bad. I thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Brad. And here's the thing. I think because it's Brad Tavares, and I think everyone knows he's a good guy. I think because of the game that these guys are playing, it's such fine margins that if someone has a target, you kind of have to. Here's the thing: if Brad Tavares didn't start kicking the legs, and he lost, everyone would be like, "Why on earth did you not go for his legs?" So he's kind of in a lose-lose situation, and then obviously he's playing party spoiler to one of the nicest comeback stories we've seen in the sport for recent times. My heart goes out to Chris Weidman, but at the same time, I'm happy for him. I don't think he got embarrassed out there. I don't think he got beaten up badly. I know, or it's presumed he has a bad knee injury off the back of this fight, which is again going to require surgery again. But the one thing we didn't want to see is him potentially lying on his back or in agony, and we didn't get to see that, which for me is a win. I do kind of hope this is his last fight in the UFC, only because I don't want him to go through any more pain than he has, especially in the last few years. And I think this is a sort of fight where he can turn around to friends and family and go, I gave it my best. I'm now at my prime. I was unfortunately robbed of 2 and a bit years, and I can leave the sport with my head held high. Everyone knows what I've accomplished. One of the best middleweights to do it in recent memory. And I leave all my faculties and I leave healthy. And I think that would be the best way to end his story.
Indeed, absolutely, couldn't agree more. And but now, since you've said these words, I'm forced to sing the song that went. I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough. And here we are, right where we were before. How about that?
We're gonna have to get you a singing contract.
Man, you gotta someone sign me up, man. In England, in the US, I'll take it. I think that was a 1970s song. I forgot who wrote it, but had you ever heard of that one before?
I have heard of that one. Yeah, I have.
Love it. I did a pretty good rendition of it.
You actually did. It wasn't too bad.
Thank you, mate. It's not in the shower. I sound even better. I think most of us do. So anyway, continuing on in the singing edition here of the Royal Family's favorite MMA podcast, MMA from London to LA. We are looking at Marlon Chito Vera, Pedro Munoz, and man, I think those of us that felt that Munoz had a good chance were rewarded in figuratively or in spirit. We were rewarded. I will say this: there were some judges' decisions that were not good, and they were all pretty much on the main card. For anyone to have felt that Marlon Vera won all 3 rounds here, ridiculous.
Oh, shocking.
No, I felt it was pretty much could have been a draw. I wanted, not I wanted, but I had expected that Munoz could pull the upset off. So I kind of was hoping for that. Nothing against Chito Vera, but that may have colored my view slightly. So I kind of, I'll have to rewatch it, but I kind of feel like somehow I saw Pedro winning. I also had several other people mention that they felt the same, although I could certainly see a draw, and I could certainly see Marlon Vera 29-28. But at 30-27 Vera, this makes me feel like they've got people, and I'm starting to feel that more. They've either got quite corrupt judges, in all MMA organizations with decisions like this, or they've got judges that just don't know what they're doing. Like literally, they're going to say, I have no idea what I'm watching, so I'm either going to make someone win 2-1 or someone win 3-0, and I'll just randomly decide to which I'll do. And but yeah, no, I thought that was a close fight. I thought Vera, it was just a really good matchup. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was a close fight. Certainly not 30-27, and Munoz just was a little bit short with his reach on several shots that could have done well, but he was just standing in the pocket. Very good fight. Unhappy though that any of the judges would see it as a shutout for either man, as you would say.
Yeah, I actually scored it to Pedro. I had him win 29-28. I'm not going to say it was a robbery because I don't think he battered Cheeto or is super clear, but I think he did enough to win 2 of the rounds. And I was quite shocked when Cheeto got his hand raised. But as you said, the judging, it's very hard to predict what they're going to do, and sometimes even harder to understand the decisions they make.
Yeah. Upsetting. I'm getting, as you guys might say, a wee bit tired. The Irish might say, a wee bit tired of this crap.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, essentially the judges are shirking on the decisions.
Yeah,
what's happening, so not good. Now, anyway, it is what it is, and that's unfortunate because Munoz really needed that victory. But it continues to not have derailed Marlon Vera, funny enough, and others. Sugar Sean, so perhaps all in the cards. Nevertheless, moving on to Damon Blackshear, my man. A week notice. I think we all realize this is going to be tough. The one thing I guess I hadn't thought of, I guess not good enough to mention it, was that with all the other things that would have been difficult on just a week notice, I guess we didn't realize the cardio would have been perhaps a challenge, having had to maintain that weight or cut weight 2 times in 8 days. That looks like that's what happened to Mr. Blackshear. However, even with him gassing, I felt he edged the fight and won. I could see it once again. Same thing in the fight before that. I could see a draw, and I could see 29-28 the other way. But once again, we had at least one judges gave it, I think 1 or 2 gave it 30-27 Bautista.
Yeah.
What the hell? What did you see in that fight?
So I did have it to Bautista, but again, I only had it 2 rounds to 1. I don't understand the whole shutout stuff that was happening. Like there was no way that was 3 rounds to 0. And look, Damon did really well, especially coming off a week's notice. I'll be honest, maybe down the line, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight rerun.
I think so.
I think we're both having a training camp.
Yeah, I think Damon wins. I think in a straight up fight where he gets proper rest and recovery, doesn't have to do anything crazy and fight twice in 8 days. Yeah, I think Damon is a special fighter, and I think had he not gassed, I think he would have possibly beat the brakes off of this guy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But Mr. Blackshear will be back. A lot of people criticizing his trainers and his camp for having accepted this fight. Although I do believe the fighter has the final say.
Yeah.
But I think some people wondered that, was his camp really discouraging him? And I would imagine not, because, everyone makes some money when you have another fight, and
Yeah,
to have made twice as much money in 8 days is brilliant, right?
it is. Yeah.
However, I think they were also probably counting on the win bonus as well, and they did not receive that. And
I'm hoping behind the scenes, an undisclosed Dana and UFC sorted him out with something,
yes,
because
as we would
he
say,
helped save the show.
hope it took care of him
Yeah.
properly. Yes, I would hope and think he deserves it. But I like him. I like Mr. Blackshear. Whenever he fights, I'm going to say, my man is getting ready to shear someone's coat like a sheep or a goat. So it's been a goat. The man will be ready to shear his opponent's coat just like he's a goat and not a
Yeah, I like that.
yeah. So I like that, Mr. Blackshear. Next up, Neil Magny, Ian Machado, Gary. Some bad blood here. I don't know why. I think Magny was doing some talking, but he's the veteran. I mean, what do you expect? He's the veteran. He was made
Yeah.
a 3.5-1 underdog. And I think, I don't know what he was saying, but I would imagine he was just speaking up, pretty much saying, you're not going to come in here and punk me like you're saying you're going to do, and like the odds
Yeah.
makers are saying. I mean, you had to understand that. And then, but Gary kind of turned it into a whole bunch of mess, referring to Neil Magny as a scumbag.
Yeah, so it stemmed from, so in the presser before so the media day pressers, Neil Magny said something along the lines of, I'm gonna whoop Ian Gary, and I'm used to whooping people. I whoop my kids or something like that. I think he said it tongue in cheek. Ian Gary kind of picked up on that and kind of ran home with it. I almost feel as though Ian Gary was manufacturing a beef here to try and drum up interest. And Ian Gary, it's really weird because I know we had the rise of Connor and the blueprints there with an Irish fighter and Connor, and I think everyone just sees an Irish fighter and a skillful fighter and thinks, oh, it must be the next Conor McGregor, but they're not realizing everything worked in a perfect storm there. You had Ronda Rousey, who was really at the top of her game at that point as well, so there were more eyes on the product. Connor was the wittiest thing we'd seen in MMA for a very, very long time. He was going out and predicting how he's going to beat his opponents and doing it. We hadn't seen that in a long, long time. And his fighting style was so different to anything we'd seen for a long, long time as well. So everything was the perfect storm. Ian Gary, for me, he's not that witty on the microphone. He's supremely confident, as you should be as a fighter, but I don't find him that witty, and he's coming across a little bit cringe. However, one thing you can't say is that he's not a fantastic fighter. He's a brilliant fighter, but I think that's all he should. He should, in my opinion, you almost, as an Ian Gary, go down the Gunnar Nelson route, where you're so quiet and you keep yourself retracted from the media, and you almost become a mysterious type of character, and the mystique grows, and you wait for Ian Gary to say something, as opposed to now where it's like you're constantly hearing about him and seeing him, and he's almost manufacturing beefs when he doesn't need to. He's too good of a fighter to have to do that. Don't try and be Connor. Be
No,
Ian Gary.
yeah,
Like, we know you look up to Connor, and rightly so. He's a fellow countryman and paved the way for fighters like yourself and many others who will come through in the future. But just be yourself. You're such a good fighter. You don't need to manufacture beef. You don't need to try and be like Connor or emulate anything he's done. Just go out there, kick people's legs out, do get head kick knockouts against people like D-Rod, and go about your business. And the crowd will naturally resonate.
yeah. I would agree 100%. In this case, he really did not do that. Not only that, he showed a bit of poor sportsmanship
Mm,
at the end, trying to hit or slap an opponent that he's just defeated. In all honesty, to Americans, what we kind of have seen is what Americans would look at as another European asshole.
mm,
Right? I think that what he's done now is create a bunch of Americans that are going to want to cheer against him and enjoy seeing him lose, because I know that's what he's done with me.
yeah.
And I have nothing against Europeans, and this is not a crack
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
no
of course. Yeah.
European,
Yeah.
but once
Yeah.
again, kind of like the Michael Bisping, it's like there's the American ass and bad guy, like the Diaz brothers, like Colby Covington,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then there's the brash Englishman and the brash Irishman, and yeah, and not only that, at 25 years old, although I guess Connor did his thing early on, but Connor was, you're right, Connor was very witty.
Yeah.
It was tremendously different. He was one of the greatest, most outspoken guys come along in a long time, and not that it can't be done again, but it seems like a bit out of character, a bit disingenuous, and like not really who Ian Gary is. But it almost seems like maybe he feels this is what he needs to do, and the strange thing is with Colby Covington, I think has the most right out of anyone. In fact, Colby and Chael Sonnen, they both were not really considered exciting fighters.
Yeah.
And Chael first was basically, quietly beating people by just out wrestling them for the most part. And
Mm.
and no one really thought about it, but only when he came alive saying crazy things like jujitsu doesn't work and it's this or
Mm.
it's that, and he's the greatest ever, and everyone sucks, and Anderson Silva, did he get all this attention, right? Colby Covington, same thing. They were about to cut
Yeah.
him, I think, when he was
Brazil.
like 3 or 4-0 in the UFC.
Yeah.
That would have been precedent setting. And then all of a sudden he becomes a bad guy and he gets fights and makes some money and can support his family. And
Yeah.
so I feel like, but now I don't think that's needed as much. Now I
It's
really am
not.
believing, right? It isn't. It's a bit of a different time, and I think your winning is enough. And but so I guess it's left to be seen. At 25 years old, sometimes the maturity level isn't there that much.
Yeah.
And I think that, because Neil Magny, he beat him handily. Neil Magny is an aging fighter. I think had Neil Magny been 5 or 6 years younger, it would have been more competitive, I
Yeah.
feel. But then for him to be such a poor, for Gary to be such a poor sport thereafter, unfortunate. But I will say this, that if he's wanting to be in a division where someone can shut his mouth, then he's lucked
It's
out.
in the right. Yeah.
He's in the right division because he can try this against Leon, against Shavkat, against Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad. If Hamzat can come back down,
Yeah.
and even Vicente Luque, I think a bunch of guys are going to put a punishment on him.
Mm.
And so if he is smart, his camp will
Rein him in a bit.
rein him in a bit, because I think, I mean, the UFC, and then we'll go on because I know I don't want to go too long, but the UFC, I think, will tend to give you what you ask for when you're winning. And I think the UFC also will tend to not hesitate matching people up against really good opponents.
Yeah.
So, if they match Gary up with anyone in like the top 6 or 7 next, I think he's in big trouble. In fact, I'm going to say right here, I'm going to fade him if he's matched up with anyone in the top 6 or 7 in his next fight. I'll
Mm.
bet on, obviously, I'll bet he's not going to get Leon next, but Leon beats him.
No. Yeah.
I feel Usman beats him. I feel Covington beats him. I feel Bilal probably beats him. I feel Burns beats him. Um, Possibly even Vicente Luque.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he'll ever fight Burns. They're really close. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right. I feel that Shavkat would demolish him. I feel that fight would be ugly.
so do I.
Yeah. Continuing on though, mate. So we did you have additional thoughts on that or no?
No, I'm in. Well, he's called out Wonderboy. I'm very interested to see if he gets that fight. I don't
That's
think that
right.
favors. I don't think that fight favors him as much as he thinks it does.
Right. No, I agree. No, Wonderboy
Like,
is 40 years old, but still, I think Wonderboy Wonderboy could actually make him look silly. And it'd be
yeah,
funny. It'd be funny if Wonderboy and Neil Magny were friends, and Wonderboy just like embarrasses Ian Machado Gary, and then afterwards shoves him and says, "How about that, you ass?" Or something like that. Yeah, that would be hilarious.
but I
Like
think Stephen
Wonderboy.
Wonderboy is probably the last person who's going
Right.
to do anything like
Right.
that.
It would be crazy.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy if he did it and said, "How about
Yeah.
this as a surprise, punk?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that Clint Eastwood, that famous American movie, Dirty Harry, the movie from
Yeah.
before you were born? And he said, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" Oh, that big gun. Anyway, So anyway, so moving on as we will. Zhang Weili, Amanda Lemos. Man, Amanda, so close early with that Dars choke. I thought she had it. I
So
picked
did
her
I.
to win. I would have looked brilliant, unlike how I normally look. No, I occasionally look brilliant, but man, I would have been. I was the only person picking Lemos that of anybody. It seemed like, and on a couple of occasions, she looked like she had her in danger with submissions. I was right that no one would end up squeezing the Lemos because Wei Li looks like she didn't even really try to submit Lemos. I think Lemos is a better grappler. Yes, Wei Li's training with Henry Cejudo. She looked great. She caught Carla Esparza in that unusual one-arm choke submission with a crucifix, in there. But I think Lemos is clearly the better jiu-jitsu fighter, and Zhang Weili knew that right away. So those that were trying to say she was going to destroy my girl on the ground, no. In fact, if it was on points on the ground, my girl with 2 near submissions would have shut her out in jiu-jitsu. Positioning, perhaps not. But anyway, Weili Zhang, the striking, amazing, very, very good. But Lemos hung in there like a champ, like a warrior. But man, that this fight illustrates how good Weili is. I guess I'd say.
I think this was a perfect fight for both women. I think it elevated both women. Even Lemos in defeat, I think everyone looks at her and goes, "You are tough as anything," and she has everyone's respect. Weili, excellent performance, and you can see that confidence that she's starting to exude now as a champion. She almost comes across as though she feels unbeatable now, and that's a very dangerous mindset to come up against. I'm just intrigued to see what Weili does next because she's got a few options on the table. She's got Zhao Nan, Tatiana Suarez, but I also think she's going to keep an eye on that 25-pound division as well. And thinking Valentina is able to get the win back in the rematch, I think we could see Weili move up and take on Valentina.
Wow, that would be a super fight.
That would be a mega fight.
Yeah, I think that Tatiana Suarez is a big danger for Weili. In fact, I'll say it right here. I'm going Suarez if she gets Weili next.
Yeah.
But Weili's tough. But yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, and that fight coming up will be interesting to see. On to the main event. And you called it. You called the Sugar Man. I know it's tough because you had to go against your Jamaican brother.
It was.
And I went for your Jamaican brother. I really felt this fight could be a bit competitive or possibly not in favor of Sterling. However, I did make a statement that I think I hadn't thought of a week ago when we did our previous show, which is that. Or maybe I did. I forget. But Aljamain had an absolute war with Henry Cejudo just 12 weeks earlier. He made a statement about a month after that, when this fight had been signed, that he wasn't really wanting to compete this soon afterward. And that the UFC kind of said, this is what you're doing. And he said he's really essentially forced into fighting at this date. And the reason being this, he's a 34-year-old fighter. After a fight like that, I wouldn't be surprised if he had numerous pulled muscles and twisted ankles. His wrists were probably beaten up. His hands were beaten up. His neck was probably jacked. His shoulders hurt. Every muscle in his body probably hurt. And then 4 weeks later, you have to go into another camp. That's just not ideal. That's why a lot of champions are only fighting twice a year, because that's what they can do to be at their best. And especially a fighter in his mid-30s, I kind of realize could be a bit of a problem. And I think I'm not trying to make an excuse for Sterling, because he got caught. Good show for O'Malley, although I felt it was a bit of an early stoppage. And I've noticed people are on both sides of that. But I feel that we saw a bit of a compromise Sterling, because he knew he had to shoot. He knew he had to shoot for the takedown. He wasn't. And part of what could have stopped him is if he just didn't have time to heal his core and his legs and his hips. and because he had to use them so much in that Henry Cejudo fight. So I will say I think that was a factor, but it also there was so much hype and momentum going for O'Malley. You know, I mentioned to a friend the other day, and then we can wrap this up and move on, and then wrap it up quickly with the newer card. But I mentioned to a friend, it seems to me sometimes in fighting when one fighter has so much hype, miraculously that fighter wins, even if they're not expected to, even if on paper they shouldn't. And I don't know whether it is that the other fighter gets psyched out or what. It's just a, you know, like Mike Tyson's. There were some guys that were pretty tough, and Mike Tyson just blasted through them.
Yeah.
Because, right, the first few guys actually, Mike got rid of some guys early, but before people knew who he was, guys would go in there with some confidence because many of these guys were 4 or 5 inches taller than Mike, you know, and 6 inches, 7 inches taller than Mike at heavyweight. And they'd say, "Oh, this is a short guy, whatever. This is, you know." But then when you started to know who he was, he had that huge intimidation factor.
Yeah.
Like he just come in there like a killer, and people are like, "Oh man, this guy looks like a tank." You know, he's short, but he looks like an absolute tank. And I don't know. I just sometimes it's a weird phenomenon, but nevertheless, it was a good catch. Good, you know, if they showed what happened, where the shorter fighter Sterling and the non-striker of the two was running forward, moving forward, and throwing. And as he moved forward and threw, and it became clear he was going to miss, all that was left was his face coming forward.
Yeah.
And you can see like he knew.
He closed his eyes before it landed. He saw it coming.
Right. And it's just, you know, and it's unfortunate because I'm not trying to throw shade on Sterling. He's not known as the most polished striker, but that was clearly an error in that you don't want to be running forward so you can't stop yourself. If anything, if he would have stepped forward and threw something, he was back here. But walking quickly forward, virtually running, bam, you know, it's almost like a gift was given to O'Malley. All respect to Sterling, though. Again, I think he was a bit compromised because of the quick turnaround.
So, firstly, I thought the knockout is so reminiscent of the Aldo McGregor one in terms of the step off and to the side and then landing the right hand. I slightly disagree with you, Colin, and I think where I agree that I think Sterling was compromised, I think he was compromised mentally, though. And the reason I say that, hearing what he said in the post fight and even in the lead up, I kept on saying he's emotional. He's really emotional going into this one, and it almost felt as though he had a chip on his shoulder, so much so that he felt as though he was fighting the UFC, he was fighting the fans, he was fighting O'Malley. O'Malley was just going in there to fight Sterling. Sterling was going in to fight everything and everyone. And the reason why I thought this would go O'Malley's way to an extent is because I thought Sterling's going to try and put on an exciting fight. If you try and put on an exciting fight of an elite striker or a striker better than you, chances are you're going to lose. Sterling, in my opinion, if he had gone in there and said, right, I'm going in there, to hell with the crowd. If they're booing, it means I'm winning. I'm going to go in there, look to get him against the fence or try and get him out in the open and take him down. Human backpack, as he calls himself, and go out there and does what he's great at, I think he would have got the win. And I'll even go as far as saying if they have a rematch, I think Aljo changed his tactics, and I think he beats O'Malley, and I think he beats him quite handily.
Yeah.
I just felt as though he wasn't in the right frame of mind for this. Obviously, the short turnaround, the fact that Dana had said some stuff about him probably wound him up, the fact that the fans are always getting onto him, O'Malley's got this hype. I think it all culminated in the result.
And to add the fact, the fight was in Boston, Massachusetts, that has one of the largest Irish American communities anywhere in the United States. Yeah. So it almost seems like a bit of a setup. You know, it's almost like this was set up for Ian Gary and Sean O'Malley both to win. But I think with Ian, it was certainly earned and deserved. I think Sean, all these things against Aljo. It's, you know, and not only that, but you know what? Damn, you know, you mentioned a good point. If I'm Aljo, if I'm Aljo, and they, first of all, they're saying you're going to have a quick turnaround. I'm going to say, no, my
Yeah.
muscles, this was a brutal fight. I'm not fighting 12 weeks from now, which means I have to start training camp in a month. No, this will be, I will fight 4 or 5 months from now. Now, I know that UFC doesn't like people, even their champions, ruining their fun. But I'll tell you what, A, the fact that he was kind of felt pressure to take that, and
Is wrong.
B, if I was Aljo and they said, oh, by the way, we're going to have this in Boston with this huge Irish community, no, I would have said
Yeah.
no, absolutely not, absolutely not, because then I would say now you're setting me up, to lose. I know there's a British colloquialism, about that. Right? I think in Australia they say you've been like I've been stitched up. I think they'll say,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? Because it does seems like right? It seems like
Yeah.
they basically said, "Well, you're the champ. We're going to disrespect you by making you fight quickly and go fight in an unfriendly arena." Yeah, that's a bit messed up.
It's exactly how it felt.
Yeah,
But again, I do want to give massive credit to O'Malley. Everyone doubted him, said he didn't deserve the title shot. He went in there. He's now bantamweight champion of the world, and he did it in spectacular fashion. And his star power now is just on another level. He was already a massive star. Now it just is taking it to a whole nother level. And
yeah.
look, I'm a Jamaican. I really wanted Aljo to win, but if there was anyone I could live with Aljo losing to, it's actually O'Malley. I'm a massive O'Malley fan. I think his style is so fluid and entertaining. His striking is, he's just so exciting to watch. And you almost, there's certain fighters you watch and you think, oh, if I trained, I could potentially do that one day. You look at someone like O'Malley and you just think you can't get what
Right.
he's got. That's God given, and
Yeah.
he just harvested it. And shout out to his coaches as well, who've been with him pretty much since day one. They all deserved that, and I'm happy for him. Like, but I'd love to see the rematch, but I doubt they go down that route.
No, I think you might be right. I think you might be right. But yeah, Tim
Yeah,
Welch is head coach. A lot of respect to him and great performance. So yeah, I think they might be careful. Not only that, but I don't think they want any part of Marab because Marab is just Marab has one style coming forward to
yeah,
take you down.
yeah,
And so that would be bad. So I have a feeling they probably should take Cheeto. I think he's even in trouble against Corey Sandhagen. Look at what Corey did
yeah,
in fight with the wrestling. I think
yeah,
Cheeto is the easiest matchup for him out of the
yeah,
several fighters out there. So
yeah. Agreed.
which they'll probably take. We'll see. But nevertheless, now let's blaze through this other fight, this other card here. So I'm gonna do this. We'll go super fast here. So I'm gonna say, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go through like a few of the fights that I have hardly anything to say, and then I'll see if you have anything to say about them. I'm gonna go for the first fight on the night. It looks like, which is Choi versus Aaron. The Korean Wonder Boy, I think, is Choi. I would say he wins. I don't know much about Aaron's, but right now I don't think too many people care that much. Na and Aldrich. Aldrich is a veteran. Na probably is the A side of that card. So of that fight, so I'd say she probably wins. And this is in Singapore. This is wow. They're going right into one championship territory
Oh
and
wow, it's
fight
going to be in Singapore.
in Singapore. Yup, Singapore Indoor Stadium. And the prelims, yes, this is early. This is starting, yeah. So you know how the prelims usually will start in England at about 11 p.m.,
No,
right?
later than that, 1 a.m. usually.
For the prelims, is it?
Yeah, some depending where you. Yeah, it's usually 1 a.m.
Okay,
for the main. Yeah, for the main events, it usually is for fight nights. It can range anything between 11 o'clock start and 1
yeah.
a.m. Sorry.
So this night, the prelims in England are going to be uh, at wow. Wait, oh wow, here we go. So listen to this. The prelims in England will be starting at 10 a.m.
Wow, I'm good with that.
Brilliant, right?
Yeah, I'm good
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. So there you go. But that means the prelims in California are starting at 2 a.m.
Oh, so we swapped around.
Yes. Oh, I don't like that. I'm not liking that at all. I'm going to stay up all night. I already stay up late, as you know, but no, I
Yeah.
don't want to be awake from 2 a.m. to 9 or 10 a.m. When the hell am I going to sleep? But anyway, so yeah, not much to say about that. Goff and Kinoshita, I just don't know them well enough to say anything. Song Kinan is a tough guy, but Bedoya, I just don't know enough to say anything. The fights I want to talk about are the Njokuani fight. The only fights I think I want to talk about is Porter and Tafa, Njokuani, the girls fight, Blanchfield Santos, Shikadze and Caceres, and Holloway. Yeah. So here we go. Do you have anything to say more than I do? Because I have nothing else to say about the following fights. Nothing else to say about Choi Aarons. Nothing else to say about Na Aldrich. Nothing else to say about Goff Kinoshita. Nothing else to say about Kenan Bedoya. And nothing else to say about Kazama Armfield.
I'm good with that.
Or Cortez Acosta Brzezinski. Do you have anything to say about those?
No, I'm all good with that.
Okay. What I'll say about the Armfield is, once again, man, Armfield, that guy should be called the arm collector. So I'd love to see him win by armbar. And then I'd love to see him get on the microphone and say, how about that? My name is Armfield, and I'm the armbar, the arm collector. Damn it. Anyway, so that could be his nickname, or is no, it can't be. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Speaking about the fights that we do want to talk about here, Chidi Njokuani against Alexichuk. I don't even have the and I better get that up there because I can't just not be able to see what I'm looking at. But I am very excited about that fight. That's going to be a striker's paradise.
Yeah.
And Chidi Njokuani coming over from Bellator and having fought in Strikeforce, and is just a killer. And again, I'm going to have to be able to get another page here. And so in that fight, then let me see here. Let's just do it quickly like that. So in that fight, Chidi is a fighter that, it took him years to get in the UFC. He is 34 years old now, and his first UFC fight was indeed last year. And actually, he's had 4 fights from February 22 to March right now. So they're giving him action. 6'3", 185 pounds, 22-9 is in his record with 15 finishes, 14 by submission. First fight, he looked great. I picked him to beat Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm still not high on the Canadian, although he's tough. And he won by first round finish. I picked him to beat Dusko Todorovic. First round finish against RoboCop. Man, he looked good for a few minutes there. He looked good, but then RoboCop, I think, earned his name in that fight by taking that flying knee. And then a split decision against Duraev. Man, I'm forgetting, but I feel like I felt Chidi maybe edged him. I really wanted.
I thought he did.
Yeah, and then it's a shame because that would have made him 3-1, and he'd be in a better place, and perhaps it might have even given him an easier opponent. I don't know. A lot of times they're match difficult. But anyway, in this fight, he fought March 25th. So that's April, May, June, July, August. Good. A good 5 month rest. Right. And his opponent, Mikhail Alexichuk, a younger fighter, 28 years old, but Alexichuk's been in the UFC longer. Alexichuk's been in the UFC for nearly 6 years.
And I didn't know he'd been in that long.
Yeah, and he's got a winning record, but not by much. He beat John Vellante. No contest against Khalil Roundtree in his first UFC fight. I don't know what happened there 6 years ago, but he beat Vellante and Tugalov, lost to OSP and Jimmy Crute by submission, came back and beat Bukowskis and Shamil Gamzatov, lost to Dustin Jacoby in a tough fight, beat Sam Alvey and Brundage by stoppage, and got submitted by Caio Borralho. That's the fight that I made. If you remember, I posted that 3 weeks before the fight was announced, and Borralho jumped on my feed and said, hey, I'm down for that fight. That fight had not been signed or probably even discussed when I posted it, saying, what about these two men fighting? Anyway, they're both wanting to come back from losses, although Alexachuk's fight was actually a legitimate loss, being subbed by the great submission fighter Bahalio. They both want and need this fight, but Chidi, being the much older fighter, really needs it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say the odds makers probably should have this pretty darn close. Let me take a look here. The odds makers have this fight as nearly a pick 'em. They've got Alexachuk the slight favorite. Man, I don't know who's gonna win this fight, but I can't wait to see it. They're
That
gonna
should
go
be
in
an
there like
excellent
rock and
fight.
sock robots. I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with who am
It's
I
so
gonna go
tough,
with?
isn't it? We gotta be on the fence.
It's almost I'm gonna go with Chidi, but I do think it's a 50-50 fight.
So Junior Tafa is not the other Tafa. What's the other Tafa? The older brother who's shorter. Justin Tafa.
Justin, yes.
Right. Junior is the younger, taller fighter. He's only 4-1, and going into the UFC, he was 4-0 and did lose that fight to Muhammad Usman, as I think many of us expected he would. And now he's got Parker Porter, and he is 6'3", 26 years old, and Parker Porter is 38 years old. 12-year difference.
I'm not mistaken. Didn't Justin Taffa, he knocked out Parker as well?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So this is and that was
fighting the whole family. Good luck to him.
That's what he's wanting to do. Yes, indeed. So it's going to be interesting to see can Porter get the revenge on the Tafa family, or will he once again be Tafa'd in a UFC fight? That's what you call it. You get knocked out by the great Samoan fighters fighting out of New Zealand, Avondale. So this is going to be a tough fight. I imagine that Porter is not the favorite, as he started to fade a little bit here. And with the odds are, I'm going to have to look that way because I can't. You know, it'd be brilliant. I would be actually using my other brain if I can realize I could bring it to this screen. Man, oh man, it takes me a second sometime at this age. All right, where are we? So we're looking at, a bit of a favorite for Tafa. Yeah, Tafa's about 1.5 to 1 favorite. He should win that fight. I will say this, though. Parker Porter is a tough, durable guy. He's 13-8 with 9 finishes. And he usually either wins by being stopped or loses by being stopped, although there's a few decisions in there. He just beat Braxton Smith by stoppage. Before that, he lost to Justin Tafa and Jailton Almeida. He had lost to Chris Dawkins by stoppage in the first round. A lot of first-round ends to his fight, but not all. Whereas Junior Tafa, the younger, taller Tafa brother, has a lot of first-round finishes also. So my thought is this one may very well in the first end of the first round. It won't go the distance. Probably Tafa wins, but with only 5 fights, Parker is so much more experienced with 21 fights. You know, I think the odds are correct. Just a slight favorite for Tafa. I probably wouldn't bet anything on this fight, but I think maybe Tafa. Although I always like to see the older fighters win. Porter needs this win much more at 38 years old against 26.
Yeah, I think all roads leads to Tafa here. I think the fact that he's lost to his brother as well. I think this is a ready-made fight, and Porter, although is still a good fight, he seems like he's slowed down quite a bit. I think it's a good matchup for Tafa. I think he gets the job done. I do think it gets done in the first round as well.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. All right, next up we have, I think, the fight that I am very, very excited about. Aaron Blanchfield against Tyler Santos. I think I might make this this fight. I might call this the Blanche faces the killer Brazilian.
I'm so surprised this hasn't headlined its own fight night.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit odd. I mean, this
massive. It's got massive title implications as well.
Yeah, it's quite odd because this would be the first fight and second fight in the main card.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but no, I think a lot of us are looking forward to that. Aaron Blanchfield is 11-1. She has looked brilliant. Who beat her? Let's go back to that. She lost to Tracy Cortez in a split decision, which many people I've heard felt that she won.
Yeah.
So really, this girl probably has the confidence of a 12-0 fighter. although she's 11-1. She's got 6 finishes though, so several women have gone the distance with her. In the UFC, however, she's 5-0 with 3 finishes. She beat Sarah Alper, Miranda Maverick, JJ Aldrich, Molly McCann, and Jessica Andrade. Now, these are tough fighters, and a couple are better than the others, but this isn't like saying she's beaten the best of the best.
Yeah, she hasn't.
Right?
Yeah.
And no, she hasn't. Tyla Santos. So Aaron is 24, and guys know I like to fade the fighters that are under 26. So in the case of Aaron Blanchfield, you could say I've lost a bit of pounds, a few quid, if you will, if you're in England betting against Aaron Blanchfield, as she's won every fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
I've lost a few. What's that other word? What's the one for a few pennies? I've lost a few shillings. Betting against Aaron Blanchfield. Anyway, Tyla Santos is going to be the older fighter at 30 years old, but right in her prime, whereas Blanchfield is not that close even to her prime at 24. Tyla Santos is 19-2 and has 13 finishes, 10 by KO, 3 by submission. Most of us, including me, felt she beat Valentina Shevchenko. It was a close fight. The headbutt caused her to back off a bit. Had it not been that, almost for certain, I think that would have been her fight. And I still felt the decision should have gone to her. Before that, she was on a killing streak. She lost. And in fact, her only other loss to that fight where she was ripped off, in my opinion, was a split decision. So she probably has the confidence of a 20-0 fighter. A 21-0 fighter. Yet her record says 19-2. So these really are two women that I feel
elite.
They're elite, but in their mind, they are both undefeated and legitimately so. Although the paper shows a slight difference. Wow, this is going to be such a great fight. 5'5" for the Brazilian. 5'4" for the American. So 2 KOs and 4 submissions for Blanchfield, who only has 12 fights. 10 KOs and 3 submissions for Santos. In all honesty, man, like I've been quite a bit upset. I've been perturbed, as the King Charles, my dear friend, might say. I'm sure you're watching, Charles. I appreciate the support. Get the rest of the family to watch. But I would say, yes, I've been quite perturbed and annoyed that I've lost every single bet fading Aaron Blanchfield. So as you guys would say also, I think in this card, we'll finally get that sorted, as I once again bet against Aaron Blanchfield in this fight. But no, I like Tyla Santos. I felt she should be the flyweight queen. It's amazing. No, not amazing. It's disturbing that she was not given the rematch and that Valentina fought Grasso. And I think the reason that was done is because they felt this would be an easier challenge. I don't think Valentina wants any more to do with Tyla Santos. And I think part of it is the age. Valentina's 34, 35. Santos
it's coming towards
30. Yeah. So no, I think that Santos wins this fight. In fact, I would think I'll normally bet like 1 or 2 units on a fight, perhaps 3. I think I'm going to prepare to bet 6 units on Tyla Santos in this fight. I really feel she's too good. Now, what people are going to say is, what if Blanchfield keeps taking her down and rinse and repeat, or controls her? I don't think so, and I'll tell you what. I think the Santos camp is going to be prepared for that. I'm not going to say she's going to want to allow a takedown, but I think she's going to be ready with guillotine chokes. She's going to be ready with knees up the middle, and then if it goes on the ground, I think she's going to be hip-scaping right away and going for submissions. I think the message the Santos camp wants to give is, you take me down, get ready to be subbed. Get ready to be tapped out. Because and I think that if she puts that fear in Blanchfield, then if it's on the feet, she's going to beat the brakes off Blanchfield. This fight could be a bit closer. Let's see the odds. And I know what it's going to be. The odds are going to have Blanchfield favored. It's all, what have you done for me lately? Let's take a look. And the odds have, yes, indeed, 1.5 to 1 favorite Blanchfield, anywhere from minus 140 to minus 156. The comeback on the Brazilian, anywhere from plus 110 to plus 125. I'm all over the Brazilian on this. I know the momentum has shifted a little bit. It's been a while since she won
Yeah.
and fought, but I don't care. Tyler Santos is the beast as far as I'm concerned, and I feel she's going to beat the brakes off of Aaron Blanchfield. Watch me be wrong, of course I could be, and I'm not advocating people betting a lot of money or even betting at all if they don't normally do it. But I feel that this is where, and not only that, but I feel that the winner of this will absolutely be the number one, a mandatory defense.
Yeah.
For the winner of Shevchenko and Grasso too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think Talia Santos was heading towards winning that belt until the head, but Blanchfield has looked like an absolute machine, especially the Molly McCann fight and Jessica Andrade. However, I don't think she's in her prime yet, and I feel like Talia Santos is in her prime, and I think that's what's going to sway this one. I think Blanchfield is a shoo-in to be a future champion. I'll be very surprised if she finishes her career and doesn't lift gold. I just think Talia Santos is further along in her development and ready now to make a sustained reign at flyweight. And if she wins and Grasso wins and they make that fight again, I've got Talia to win that fight. So I'm going Talia Santos in this one as well. I believe I feel as though she'll get a second round stoppage.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction as well, and I think she's going to be a future champion. They both may be, but Santos sooner. Okay, let's blaze through these because I don't want to keep you up too much longer here. Chikadze Caceres, who the hell knows in that fight? Chikadze hasn't fought
since Calvin Cater.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to go Chikadze though.
Say again.
I'm going to go Chikadze.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's 34, so he's not the younger fighter, or is he? They're both no, he is a year younger.
Yeah.
Caceres, 34 fights at 35 years old. This is a pretty good amount. He lost to Sadiq Yusuff. Otherwise, he's just been smashing people. But Chikadze is, I think, is a better fighter, and 17 fights, less miles on him. It's going to be a striking fest. It really is. Yeah. This is a brilliant card, by the way, as you guys.
It's a brilliant card,
especially those that like striking and even grappling, but especially there's going to be some great striking matchups. The Chidi and Jaquani against Alexa Chuck and this one are going to be a striker's delight. So yeah, I've got Chikadze, but I think Caceres is going to make it a tough fight. And the odds on this one, I would imagine, are fairly close. And the answer is no. Chikadze is a slightly over 2-1 favorite. Caceres is so tough. He's slowing down a bit, but he's so tough. And he's the better ground fighter, apparently, because we've never really seen Chikadze much on the ground. But Chikadze trains there with Benil Dariush on the ground, and he's a great black belt. So I don't know. In all honesty, I would bet. I don't like to lay this chalk on a guy off for a couple years, although he should win. I think either a sprinkle on Caceres since he's the dog, or just saying maybe the fight will go the distance. Maybe my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to go Chikadze by the distance. I'm going to go to decision.
Yep, sounds good. Next up, we have the I think the co-main, the co-main event. Anthony Smith, Ryan Spann.
This is a rematch, isn't it?
Yep, it is. Ryan Spann, a slight favorite here. And looking at this fight, the rematch is from, why is it not coming up on my screen? There it is. And the rematch is from 2 years ago. Yep.
Yeah.
Rear naked choke. Ryan Spann got on Anthony Smith. Lionheart's 35 years old. 6'4".
Smith won the fight. Smith.
That's right.
Won by TKO. Won by TKO.
Right. Sorry about that. Rear naked choke win by Smith. I forgot whose page I was on. I thought it was assumed Smith. Yeah. So 35 years old, 6'4", 205. Lionheart, although he may be a slight bit shorter than 6'4", but still a taller fighter. 33 finishes out of 36 wins. Did you know?
Wow, I didn't know that.
A total of 54 fights at age 35. A lot of miles on him. Ryan Spann is the younger fighter at 31, has a more reasonable 29 fights. Out of his 21 victories, 18 finishes. These guys both have nearly a 90% finish rate. Wow. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and this is in Singapore. Nikita Krylov just having caught Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann can be a bit hit and miss. That's a bit of the problem here.
Yeah.
He's been in the UFC. He's been in the UFC for 5 years, and he started out with 4 wins, although most of us felt that Sam Alvey beat him. But he's 4, 5, 6, 7. He's 7-3 in the UFC, but he's coming off a loss. This really could go either way, and the odds makers having Spann a slight bit favorite. Lionheart needs it more, but then I think Lionheart's got a career as part of the UFC broadcast.
Yeah.
Right. So, especially since Spann has been submitted by, twice in his last 4 fights, and one of them was to Smith, and Smith has 14 submissions. Spann is the taller guy at 6'5". I'm probably gonna go Smith, but I think I may not get to the betting window on it. Probably I'm not gonna stay on the fence, but I would say almost for sure it's a finish. Although the payout would be quite good if it's a decision. I would imagine you could get 4, 5, 6 to 1 against for you in your favor if you go bet decision. Seems like a long shot, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually think because it's a 3-round fight, I actually think it will go to decision. Andy Smith, he's notoriously hard to finish, but I do think he's getting more and more gun shy in there now, and he did have a really good win over Spann the last time they fought, but I feel like Spann has developed that KO of Dominic Reyes was a prime example. Granted, he didn't win his last fight, but I think that's because he rushed. If he was just fighting sensibly, I think he would have been okay. I'm actually going to go with Ryan Spann over the course of a 3-round decision. I don't think he'll stop Anthony Smith because Anthony Smith is such a veteran and he's so tough. It's unreal. I think you've literally got to put him to sleep to get him to be finished.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go Ryan Spann via decision.
Gotcha. Wouldn't be surprised. And he definitely has that wingspan at 6'5".
Yeah.
Perfect name, Spann. That's great for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, main event, Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, Chen Sung-Young, or Jung, if you will. Young, I think is how they pronounce it. He is a great fighter. Wow. This is like 7 to 1 odds.
Wow.
Yes. Max Holloway is anywhere from -750 to -1,000 on one website. The comeback on the Zombie anywhere from +525 to +550. Yeah, the Zombie is past his prime, and at 36 years old, although he's just had 24 fights, he's had so many wars. He's just had so many wars. He is the older fighter. Max Holloway has more fights though, 31 fights. He's only 31 years old though.
It's crazy.
It is insane. At some point, Max is going to lose a step as well, and it'd be interesting if Max has lost a step on this night, then the Zombie could maybe do something, but it doesn't seem that way. Max has won 3 out of his last 4 fights, and other than to someone named Alex Volkanovski, he's been beaten by anyone in 4 years, unless your name is Alex Volkanovski. Lost 3 times to him. Chen Sung-Young beaten by Alex Volkanovski, but beaten a bit easier and stopped. Lost to Brian Ortega. He's only had 3 losses though, but he got stopped in 2 of the 3. Anyway, this should be Max Holloway all day. I hope it's competitive, but I fear it might not be. What do you think?
I'm a massive Holloway fan. It's one of my favorite fighters of all the time. Korean Zombie, again, at his prime, in his peak, what a fighter to watch, and war after war. And there's a reason he got the name the Korean Zombie, because he'd walk through people's hardest punches and kicks and then take you to a place where you've never been and drown you. Max Holloway, though, is about, he's the featherweight GOAT, if not for Volkanovski. And we're talking about a reign that hasn't even been beaten yet. If there's no Alexander Volkanovski, Calvin Kattar, Yair Rodriguez, Arnold Allen didn't have to take these fights, took these fights, and still showed he's the second best in the division. With all due respect to Korean Zombie, I give him a round to be able to get a win against Max. The longer this goes, the more Max starts to read his patterns in his rhythm, the worse it gets for Korean Zombie. I believe he's stopped in the 4th round.
Yeah, I think so. I just hope he doesn't take an undue amount of punishment.
Same, but
yeah.
I hate to say it's Max. Max, that's one thing he dishes out is punishment in there, and the guy's non-stop cardio for days as well.
He's amazing. Well, maybe Young will get a lot of sleep and great meals and not have injuries that he's nursing, and maybe he'll be fighting like he did 10 years ago. That'd be amazing. Love to see that. But yeah, I think he's in a bit of trouble here. Tough spot against Max Holloway. Great card. Some great matchups coming up. Really excited about this one. We're getting good fight card after good fight card here in the summer. And, I think that there's nothing more that can be said. This should be a very exciting night. Well set for a great daytime card beginning in a reasonable hour, 10 in the morning.
Yes, what we like to hear.
Yep. My mate here, Callum Sanderson, me, I'm going to be, I guess, watching it after the fact. Save for, I probably will watch a couple of the early prelims since I stay up late, perhaps, but maybe not. But anyway, it's going to be a great card. Well, Callum, it's been great chopping it up with you, as they say. Hey, I've just been notified that we are the #1 most watched MMA show by British Parliament. How about that? Man, oh man, this is who knew that we were going to do it? Was obviously from Callum. They don't know me from a hole in the ground over there. So not only was #1 watched MMA show by British Parliament, the favorite show by the royal family, King Charles religiously watches, apparently from what I've heard, MMA from London to LA. So I think it's all Callum Sanderson. I'm waiting to bring in someone here. I think I've got the trash collectors union that likes to watch me here in the United States. So we're not quite getting the people that Callum's getting over there in England, but nevertheless, Callum,
one day we'll get the president watching.
There we go. Exactly. Well, I appreciate Callum. Great going over there. I have to apologize. I kept you longer here.
No problem at all.
I'm glad that we both were able to come back after falling off. It's going to be quite fun because you can see how I looked when you were off for 5 seconds. And then I think I was off for a full 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of extra fun here. It shows both of us can handle it, though, when one of us is gone. But anyway, I guess I will throw it to you, Callum, first, and let people know where they can watch your great content and read your great content.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Callum Sanderson, also on Instagram as well. And you can also find me on the Sanderson Show on YouTube as well.
Absolutely. And you can catch me mostly on Twitter or X right now. And I do X Spaces, perhaps. Once MMA Power Hour on Twitter Spaces Tuesday nights at 6 or 6:30 p.m. Pacific time in the U.S. I'll occasionally do one Friday as well, doing some interviews on occasion for Ultimate Fan Experience, just randomly here. And, people have been interviewing me on occasion on their shows, but this is my passion here, this show with my favorite British reporter, Callum Sanderson. The man has the wrestling of Callum Sanderson. He has the striking skills of Anderson Silva. He has the charisma of the most popular movie stars out there, and great looks to boot. And so I tell you, Callum Sanderson, what doesn't this man have? It's a pleasure, to work with you, my friend. I really enjoy it.
Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you, mate. That's about it then. So I'll wrap it up here. Say for Callum Sanderson, this is Colin Crandall. Until we see you next time from MMA from London to LA. Peace.